filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or another use by such third parties. Therefore, by entering the council chamber and using the seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. Everybody else. It's online as well. This is our Stronger Communities Select Committee, Tuesday the 20th of September at 7 p.m. Our first item, item 2, apologies for absence, please.
We have apologies from Councillor Lee and Councillor Hadley.
Item 3, substitute members.
There are none, Chair.
Item 4, declarations of interest. None. Item 5, the notes of the previous meeting, which are on pages 5 to 10 on our agenda. Do members have any questions? Win Marshall?
Yes, my name seems to be missing from the attendees at the last meeting.
I've got you noted down. You are on the system, you're just not on the minutes, but I will rectify that.
Councillor Wixley?
Yeah, a couple of things actually, Chairman. On page 4 of the minutes or the notes, the last bullet point but 1 is reference to savings of £22,000 per year. Actually, if you look at the minutes of the agenda of the previous meeting on the 12th of July, the £22,000 per annum refers to the expected rental income from letting the Broadway office when it's vacated. So that's, I think, one thing that needs to be corrected. I've got agreement, I think, from Deborah. The second thing is actually on page 7. It's just a word missing, but it might be a relevant word. I'm sure it is. Again, that's the second bullet point, the paragraph from the bottom of the page. No, sorry, the third bullet point. The last sentence was reference to more bricks and mortar, which I think should be more than bricks and mortar. I'm sure Deborah will agree with me on that.
Sorry, even better than that, it should be, it's more than bricks and mortar. So apologies.
Okay. With those amendments, are members happy to agree the minutes of the previous meeting? Thank you.
I think...
Councillor Brooks?
I apologise if I wasn't paying fully attention. There's just one correction that I don't think my colleagues... I'm not a member of this committee, but I did join virtually. It was on page 4. Just that confusion about the Baptist Church. It is the Church of England that run it, but it is called John the Baptist. But I think it's confusing because there is a Baptist church in Loughton, but it's not them that run the outreach. And at the moment, it's mainly shut, unfortunately, because they've got electric problems, I think. That's on page 4, basically.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. I'm sure that will be amended too.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next item is the biannual report on the work of the council-funded police officers. Could I ask Caroline Wiggins? Oh, my apologies. We have the Terms of Reference and Work Programme, pages 11 to 16 of our agenda. This is for the... The Overview and Scrutiny Committee have agreed the Terms of Reference and Work Programme for this Select Committee, so we are invited at this time to review the documents. Do members have any questions or comments on the work programme? Are members happy to note the works programme? Agreed? Thank you very much. We can now move on to the biannual report on the work of the council-funded police officers. Caroline Wiggins, please.
Good evening, councillors. I think you're quite used to seeing me every 6 months. I've just come. The report here is just an update on what we've been doing over the 6 months with the Community Safety Hub and Community Resilience team. Some of the highlights I like to pick out is the work we've done in the dedicated patrols at Epping Market. Following information, actually, we spoke to the Town Council around underreporting of pickpocketing type offences against elderly victims. The community resilience officers and the EFDC funded policing team and Essex Police Business Crime team worked along the whole high street. And one of the things I'd just like to add is some feedback we received from residents. I think this went into Essex Police and some positive feedback. I go to Epping Market every Monday and I'm happy to see police officers on foot patrol. It was very reassuring and makes people feel safer. I've seen them interacting with people and I can see that everyone in the market is surprised but happy they're there. The officers did detain a pickpocket who was arrested that day and charged, on one of the days, using CCTV as well, provided by Epping Forest District Council. That's just one example. I think also the report refers to the ASB Awareness Week in July, where the team worked in partnership with a number of council teams to partake in free community engagement events in Wolverhampton Abbey, Chigwell and Ongar. These were days of action where officers from both organisations met with the public, gave out crime prevention advice and materials and conducted joint patrols. And it was great because there was neighbourhoods, estates, land and estates teams and the community resilience team there to engage with the public. We had the week before last an event on 9 fields led by the Essex Fire and Rescue, a safe, well and secure event, which was massively successful. I'm waiting for the feedback from Essex Fire and Rescue, but over 1,900 residents were visited and door knocks and engaged, and it was around, from health partners, community safety partners, the police. It was totally across the gamut, and I'm hoping that we can replicate that somewhere else across the district. Again, it's very successful. And just really to sort of what this report doesn't say, that last year our team, the funded officers and the community resilience team were successful in achieving 5 local policing area commanders commendations. For Ops Synapse, that was awarded to Neil Ross, our sergeant, Melissa Foe, Michelle, and 2 officers from neighbourhoods, Roxanne and Parminda. For the Rolex Watch series in Epping Forest, for which Ben and Tom, 2 officers identified a suspect for a vague description and arresting the offenders on the high street, possibly in the commission of an offence. And for Ben and Tom again, for providing CPR to a patient suffering cardiac arrest at Debden Station. The officers provided CPR for almost an hour in high temperature weather, and the patient survived after being defibrillated twice. And just a little aside to that, sorry, I know I go on a lot, but the Community Safety Partnership are funding a defibrillator to be carried around in the police vehicles for our team, so they will always have that equipment with them. So if they're there and they can do something, we know they would. Any questions?
Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, I've got a few questions actually, if Caroline can be patient with me. This probably seems quite a sort of low-level issue, but I do get complaints about parking when it blocks a pavement, and I'm getting sort of misleading messages on this because I did speak to a police officer who's been a community officer in Louth for quite a few years, and he said that he would go and have a look there and then on the spot, which was quite good. I don't know the result, but I'm also being told that it isn't actually a policing issue. So I'm at a bit of a loss on that one, whether the police can do something about it or whether they can't. But that was just one of my questions. Yeah, if you can do that one first, yeah, fine. Sorry.
I have a written statement from the district commander around obstruction and when they can. So if you're happy for me to share that with Rebecca so it can go to the whole meeting. I think if an officer's there and they can clearly see that it's obstructing emergency vehicles, they can. But I think it's actually getting officers to attend, you know, and wherever they're called other places, unfortunately, that's going to be lower down the thing. But if I can share with you, with the select committee, the official wording I got from District Commander Paul Ballard, I think that would be more informative.
I think the issue on that which the resident was concerned about was it's forcing people to walk into the road, and this particular road is a bend, and she's concerned about mothers with children in prams and having to walk into the road, especially when there's not a pavement on the other side of the road. So that was the issue. On the antisocial behaviour awareness week, which is in Waltham, Abbey, Chigwell and Ongar, I just wonder if there are any plans to hold that elsewhere in the district in the future. Obviously I'm thinking of Loughton, but also places like Buckerstill and North Weald. I mean, they're fairly big.
We're really keen to get those awareness events moved around the district. We did hold one in Debden Broadway, I don't know if it, but I totally agree with you, and I think we could probably do one every 2 months. It's literally the officer time and everything, but I'll take those comments on board and I'll find out from Melissa what dates are in the diary for the next future ones.
Thanks for that. I think I looked in at the one at Debden Broadway, but because we've got Loughton High Road as well, so that'd be useful there. And the other point is on page 17. Can you tell me what YTD stands for?
Year to date. I am trying my best. I do apologise. They do sneak in sometimes, those acronyms.
Yeah, just one other thing. With the officers which are being funded, how do they sort of mesh in with our own sort of, well, each town's got its own, I assume, neighbourhood police officers. So how do they sort of work together? How does that sort of mesh in?
So we have close links with the community policing team, and some of those are ASB awareness events. It was actually the community policing team and our officers. If their officers are on, they might be also working with, if I say CPT, do that. So I think we've got really close links. It's really important, actually, and one of the things is that we keep those relationships, because our funded officers are an additional asset to the community, and they're not a replacement for the community placement team. We've got 2 really good sergeants in the district in the CPT, and I think it's about making sure that we're adding benefits with our team and not just backfilling where there might be gaps. And I'm confident actually that we're not doing that. For the Safe, Well and Secure event in Ninefield 2 weeks ago, the community policing team were there out in force doing the knife searches and the door knocking and so on. It wasn't just our officers. Quite often it's a joint effort.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you. I'm pleased to see that Thaden Boyce is such a law-abiding place that we haven't needed to call upon the officers at any time. But one thing I would ask about, and that's road safety. One of my other hats, I'm the Deputy Coordinator for the Speed Watch in Thaden Boyce, and from time to time we have had PC Andy Cook come along, not for every session, but for the odd session, and it's quite salutary from those who are actually pulled up by the police because they're not expecting that. Unfortunately, PC Cook has had very little time to do this lately. Is this something that these officers could help with at all? And I say it's only very occasionally, we don't do it for every session. Oh, I'm sorry.
can I take that back and speak to the team? And I've got no objections if there's proper tasking, and just make sure we go through the joint process, but also find out from PC Cook whether, you know, when he can come back as well. I'm not sure with the chaining requirements what's been done, but I'm happy to take that back as a request.
Thank you.
Councillor Newk.
Thank you, Chairman. I must commend the officers for the great work they've been doing here. Yeah, it's quite a lot of things been in here. But I've got one question, because I was out and about a few days ago, and residents in Oakhill Estate approached me and was saying that they're a bit concerned that it seems like drug dealing is going on rampant there in the estate, and it seems like the police are turning a blind eye to it. No one is doing anything about it, and they feel a bit concerned. So I thought I'll ask that question. Can the officers support and help and look into what is going on in that estate, especially in Longcroft Rise? Apparently there's a drug dealing going on openly with these drug dealers not concerned of anything. So, because it's been going on for a long time, they're a bit confident carrying on with their activities. So is it possible to look into this, please?
Definitely look into it. What I could also ask is that when you speak to residents, if they can report that, if they're not comfortable with reporting it to the police for fear of retribution or being targeted, to use Crime Stoppers, so we get the intelligence reports. And it'd be useful if you could send me an email, Councillor, and then I can have a look and see what intelligence we have got, because police won't attend if it's not reported. So it could be, I wouldn't like to comment, that residents are reporting it and it's known, but I'd like to follow that up and I find out what information we have got and what concerns. And happy to put together a tasking for police to include that area to do regular visits out when our team are on, that they do patrols there.
Thank you for that. What information I got from the gentleman is that he's been reporting it, but since he feels that it's been ignored because the police are not coming around and nobody's getting back to him about it.
Councillor Balcombe.
Thank you, Chair. One of the questions I would like to ask is Fifield and Morton, which is the ward that backs onto my ward, and my ward have had lots of problems with burglaries. And the question I was asked at the last meeting was, if Epping has got community or paying for extra policemen, why aren't we seeing them in the villages more? Why they always seem to be in the towns? Because getting a policeman to come out is just about impossible. In fact, some of the crimes, the police haven't even come out to take a statement when they've lost trailers, cars, mowers, things like that.
I think that in that case was brought up at the last public meeting, and I know Mr. District Commander Paul Ballard followed up with that. There is definitely work we need to do on rural crime. I think that, again, it goes, the rural crime strategy is just being redone at the moment by the Police and Fire and Crime Commission's office, and I'm happy to share the draft strategy with members if you'd like to have a look through it and comment on that side. There is a rural crime officer and there's also the GTRET team as well. I think it goes back to what intelligence we got, whether there's taskings, and we can do that. But if there is a particular area that's being targeted at a time, we can do a tasking and ask them to look at additional patrols on that one.
I think one of the problems is that at the moment there's lots of the villages around that area are feeling they're not getting the support they deserve. One community policeman doing the whole area who's based in Loughton is just silly because he can't be there. He's always 25 minutes away. And I think that's one of the problems. I know you can't always have a policeman, but they're saying, again, the villages, like everything else, don't get their fair share.
I'll feed back your concerns to Mr Ballard, because obviously that's on the policing one. What I would like to say from a community safety partnership perspective is actually that one of the things that I've been speaking with Councillor Whitbread, is the chair, is that there isn't enough about rural crime in our strategic assessment, and we need to start having a look more. So I do take on board your comments, and hopefully when I come to see you in March, with the strategic assessment and the annual report, we can see what else we can start doing in the rural areas. Thank you.
Win Marshall.
Just following on from that, I actually raised that question at a meeting, I think it was last year, about rural crime, and I was assured that, you know, it was on the agenda, but like the gentleman says, I've heard cases where nothing's happening about it either, you know, and I think he's right. I think sometimes the villages do feel they're not getting the same input that the towns, the urban areas, the district are getting, you know. And what the other problem is, of course, they're saying that the same thing, like when crimes are reported, for somebody gets out from Loughton to where the crimes occurred, they're long gone. You know, it is a problem, but it is something I think the council needs to address.
Okay. Councillor Kane?
That's me, yes.
Sorry,
Yeah, thank you,
Councillor
Chairman.
Sam Kane.
Thank you very much. I couldn't let this opportunity go by without commenting on the phenomenal year-to-date figures. I noticed that in all except personal robbery, we're far exceeding the performance of the rest of Essex Force. And I just wondered, Caroline, can we put this down to our excellent funded officers, or does part of it reflect the fact that Essex now has more police officers than it has at any time?
I'm not sure how I can answer that one, Councillor Kane. I think it's a combination of, it's really reassuring. I've worked at the council 16 years and I don't think we've ever had such good performance figures when you measure us against the force and other Essex CSPs. I think the force, the officers, we are much better at strength in the district with officers. I think the EFDC funded team is recognised as very, you know, very proactive, and they are getting good results. So I think it's, you've got a good community safety partnership manager. I think it's a combination of everything.
Thank you, and well done.
Okay. Councillor Brooks?
Thank you. I'll endeavour to try to switch my microphone off this time. Just a couple of questions, really. I know from a former colleague who lives in Blenheim Square what an issue it's been up there. And I've wondered if, Caroline, I saw that on the report, are things a bit, with all the antisocial behaviour they've been having for some time, are things quieter up there now?
I spoke to the officer probably last month. I do ask for regular updates. A number of councillors asked me, and I haven't had any new concerns. But sometimes I'd like to double check for you rather than say here. But if I go back to the officer involved and get an update for you.
It's all right. And it was really that, probably because he's busy, but we do find it difficult to get Mark Arnold, the community support officer, to our Broadway town centre partnerships, and some of my colleagues on the partnership have just been asking, you know, if it's possible for him to come. I presume he gets an invitation all the time to the meetings, but it would be really helpful because he did at one point attend more regularly. Thanks.
I'll take that request back to the... Oh. Yes, that'd be lovely. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, members. And
just to advise you that I've asked the team of officers to attend the next coffee with members so that you'd have a more relaxed opportunity to have conversation about what's going on. So as soon as Democratic Services release the next day, I will make sure that the officers are there to give you a chance to speak to them personally if you've got any concerns.
okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Caroline. It was really useful to have you here answering those questions, so thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is the customer service strategy update, which was pages 33 to 36. Susan Lewis, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Evening, members. So I'm going to take you through the reports on what our customers are telling us and also an update on our customer service strategy. So in terms of what our customers are telling us, waste and recycling, the current issues are still the number one topic of telephone calls to the contact centre. Obviously, the output is that we are receiving additional calls. The contact centre and the waste team are working very closely together to provide up-to-date daily information to residents, and the communications team are making sure that we've got up-to-date social media posts going out daily to keep residents informed. Unfortunately, of course, the consequence of the additional calls due to the waste crisis means that we are seeing longer queue lengths for residents as the customer service team are not resourced to manage the additional calls. We have actually secured some additional resource, so we've actually got 2, it says 3. We've now got 2 additional temporary staff, and those staff are taking the calls from missed collections, and we will also train them up to deal with special collections as well. What I would say is that the call volumes have been reducing slightly, so we are starting to see some improvement. Further consequence is the increase in formal customer complaints, 43% increase related to the waste crisis. So 44% of the complaints since April have been upheld for missed waste collections. In terms of the moving on to the customer service strategy, so the core vision for our digital work is to provide digital services that our customers, residents and businesses can use by default. So what I mean is we provide them with simple to use, simple to navigate digital solutions which they would choose to use rather than a phone call. Bearing in mind, of course, we're always going to have those residents that will require a phone call or face-to-face support. So with the contact centre encouraging and coaching customers on using digital, this has resulted in a 15% increase in the use of digital forms. So 15% more customers are going online rather than calling us and using online forms to contact us. This has also resulted in a 6% reduction in telephone calls over the same period. So you may recall that earlier this year, back in March, we consulted with residents on our digital strategy, and we asked them what the barriers were to using digital. The predominant feedback was that the website was difficult to navigate and they found our online forms difficult to use. The look and the feel of the forms was inconsistent. So the customer services and communication team have been working together to develop a mock-up of a revised, simpler version of the website, taking on board the customer feedback, so making it easier to navigate, to find information, and looking at simplifying the forms as well. We prioritise waste, so we've been looking at the waste forms, mapping the customer journey, and, as I said, developing simpler versions with far less clicks involved for the customers to use those forms. Moving on, the cash office at Debden Broadway. So one of our objectives was to look at alternative solutions for cash paying customers. And you will recall from my last update, we said that we will be working towards implementing an all-pay payment solution, which is an all-pay card for council tax and business rate customers. So these cards are being launched, and I think from memory it was 62 locations, so it's post offices and outlets and supermarkets throughout the district. So what it means is those cash paying customers don't have to come all the way to the Broadway. Hopefully they'll have somewhere very close by that they can make a payment. The launch date, the cash office will be actually closing towards the end of November rather than October, which it states in the report. That's due to the availability of some specific resourcing for testing, but communications will be going out to customers over the next few weeks. With the introduction of the all-pay cards, that's going to result in some savings of around £10,000 per annum, plus the release of the building for future rental income. Digital members, so in terms of the digital members journey, we have been encouraging members to bring their own device, and the IT service desk have been offering coaching for members on connecting to council systems via personal devices. They've also produced a guide highlighting the benefits of using your own device, and we would ask all members to consider whether this would be a more suitable option. We are seeing very low levels, and we have done for a few months now, of tickets raised by members for any IT issues. In fact, quite a lot of the time, we haven't got any tickets raised at all. So it's just a reminder that if you are having any issues or any barriers with your equipment, please do raise a ticket so that the team can get that sorted for you. As I said, majority of our customers, so you may recall 90% of the residents who took part in the survey said that they do use digital for shopping and banking, but they were facing challenges with communicating with us via digital. We know that some customers will still prefer face-to-face channels, and the Epping Community Hub here at the Civic is seeing on average 38% month-on-month increase in visitors. Those services in particular obviously offering help and support around benefits and finance. So in August we had our highest volume of 150 visitors since we opened last September. We also welcome in Barclays, so with the closure of Barclays on the Epping High Street, Barclays, we welcome them into the community hub 3 times a week, providing non-cash transactions such as online banking support, account inquiries, etc. for residents. In terms of digital inclusion, so I mentioned previously about the initiative offered by West Essex Community Action Network. They were offering 6 months of free SIM card data, and that's been really well received by some of the visitors to Civic who have been most in need of that data. We've also just recently started offering digital coaching for residents. So when I say we, that's been offered by We Can and Voluntary Action Epping Forest. So we've had 2 of their colleagues based in the hub on a Thursday, and either on a referral basis, appointment basis, or as walk-ins, we've had residents coming in to take advantage. In particular, we've had... Sorry, what happened? I knocked it, sorry. In particular, we've had residents coming in and getting some guidance and support on finding information regarding the energy rebates online. One of the residents in particular praised the support and commented that it certainly wasn't a level of support they expected to get from coming into a Civic. And I believe Becky's just about to send some media posts out with some case studies just highlighting the support that's been given and the benefit it's been to residents. We are further promoting via the community champions and the town and parish councils, and Limes Farm is being looked at in terms of the next venue for possible coaching. Do members have any questions?
Wynne Marshall.
Couple of questions actually. When you're, do you have a set time you're supposed to reply to the phone? Do you have a set time when you should be replying to phone calls? Yeah, like do you supposed to reply within sort of 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
So, in terms of our answer rate, what's happening at the moment is the waste calls are taking much longer to answer. So as a result of that, the wait time is much longer. So we are seeing longer call waiting times. And that is as a consequence of the wait calls, of the waste calls, wait calls. So we don't have a set time. We obviously try to answer calls as quickly as we possibly can. But at the moment, the average wait time is longer than we would like. And as I say, that's unfortunately because of the waste crisis and those calls taking much longer to deal with.
Yeah, can I follow on? And what advice are you giving those people when you do answer the calls and if they come in with a waste complaint?
So the team obviously apologise and they will give the information that they've been given by the waste team. So they've got up-to-date information on the roads and the streets that have been missed and dates of when those collections will take place. And that information is provided directly from BIFA on a daily basis. So all the team can do, as you can appreciate, is actually share that information and apologise for any inconvenience.
Yeah, just another follow-up a bit later on. These people are coming in to use the Epping hub, where they're getting all this information and they're getting questions answered and what have you. Do you find out where they're coming from? I mean, are they just like Epping residents? Because again, we brought this up before that nothing seems to be happening in Loughton. So all these Epping residents are getting this information or getting these questions answered. People in Loughton aren't.
So they do, when they come in for support, they ask to complete a short questionnaire, just did they find the information useful, and also capturing whereabouts they've come from. So yes, we have got that. In terms of the hub, it's the first hub we've done, and what we're doing is looking at the needs of the residents who are coming in, and also taking those learnings so that we can consider where we go next with the hub. So whether that's Loughton, Waltham Abbey, or any areas which are deemed suitable for having a hub, we'll be taking the learnings from this one.
Okay, good evening. I'm Rob Pavey, Customer Service Director, for those who haven't met before. A couple of faces I don't think I've met. Just some context on the previous question. The average wait time last week was 5.5 minutes. So that gives you some context around how, unfortunately, that's a lot longer than we'd want people to wait, but gives you some context around that. I think I'd just like to say on the customer context around the waste issue, I wouldn't say it's a crisis as such. It's an issue that we're managing as an authority. We know the reasons why it's happening, and we're in discussion with the supplier, and there's options coming forward on that. And internally, we're looking for ways to improve the process, what we offer for customers online, to make it easy for them to report online, because often it's they want to make sure their bin's going to be collected. They're not going to get missed the next time, if you know what I mean, and completely understand that. It's the most visible evidence of their council tax being paid, isn't it? Let's be honest. What we're doing is we are working behind the scenes very hard to resolve this, both at a technical level with the supplier and obviously within our customer response to that. What it is, and when we get things like this, it seems like everything hits the contact centre, and that's where you see, but it is because of a failure of a service, a failure, or something's not being delivered as it should be. And our supplier is being challenged at the moment around this. So it is truly a whole organisation approach to resolving this. So it's as much taking customer ownership in the service itself, which is happening within the waste team. They're trying to do their best there, and at the front end and how we treat suppliers. So to truly end-to-end response, we've got to deal with here, because it's not where we want it to be at the moment. Okay.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you. I'm pleased to note that there are two additional temporary staff and community service team, because on a visit here I did hear the difficulties that you're being experienced as a result of people phoning up about the non-collection of waste. I did take the opportunity of writing on the Thaden Boys Facebook page that could people not telephone you? Could they look at the website? And certainly just, if that wasn't collected on the due day, just wait another day. It will probably come along on the next day, and hopefully that might have had a little bit of an effect on reducing it. A general point I'd like to make, yes, I think most of us are very familiar with digital services now, but I am slightly concerned, and I know what's said about the hub and people can come in here, but I'm slightly concerned about usually older people who don't have access to the web, probably a bit scared about it and don't really know how to communicate. So I'm not saying we shouldn't go forward with digital and increase it, not at all. But I think we should remember that there are other people who cannot work with digital, and we need to make sure that we've got the resources there to help them.
Absolutely. So what we're hoping is that by making our online digital easy to use, we will deflect as many residents who do use digital in the rest of their life to using digital, which will free up our officers' time to support those residents who, for whatever reason, choose not to use digital. So that's the plan.
Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, my question actually relates to the third paragraph on page 31. It's an issue which previous councillor has just raised, actually, about taking extra staff to deal with all these phone calls. We're having to take on extra staff because Biffa can't apparently cope at the moment with waste delivery. So the extra staff are going to cost money, the council's money. Is there a provision to claw that back from Biffa? Because they may be in a difficult situation, but they're ultimately responsible. So that's one question. I've got another one, but perhaps I can just...
If I could pick that one up, please, Councillor Whitsley. Yes, that has been raised, and it's part of our ongoing discussion with Biffa. So it is recognised that there may be some cost deflection there, but we're talking to them about that generally. So yeah.
I hope you're not only talking to them, but I hope you're successful in getting some recompense. Yeah. My second question is on the digital stuff. I mean, I'm not really a digital person myself, but a few years ago, probably before, well, certainly it was before your time, Susan, councillors are actually, at that time, probably maybe 3 years ago, told to report issues themselves online on the council, just as any resident would do. And, you know, that seemed, I think, fairly straightforward when I first tried it. I think I've only tried it a couple of times, not found the need to do that on other occasions. But then the next time I tried it, it got a bit complicated because it was then asking me to supply a password, which I just couldn't understand why I needed to supply a password to report a complaint. And I just wondered if that is still happening, and if that's, as it did in my case, put me off using it.
No, it's fine. I will take that offline, councillor, because you shouldn't need to. So are you trying to report it via the members portal, via the member contact form? How are you trying to report it? Sorry.
No, at the time, so it's probably before your time, we were told just to report it as a member of the public would do. I think there was provision on there to say whether you were a councillor or not. So that was fine. And then I think next time I did it, for some peculiar reason, which I couldn't understand, I couldn't get an explanation for, it asked me to submit a password. Now, why on earth would it do that? Is it still happening to members of the public? You know, I just couldn't understand the logic of that. But if you say that's no longer the case, that's fine. But I thought that might be a deterrent to people using a digital method of reporting things, because why would you need to leave a password?
Yeah, I'll take it offline, but you shouldn't need to use a password. It'd just be good to understand where you were trying to go. So on the front page of the website, right at the very bottom, it says members portal, and if you click on there, you've got everything you need in one place, and you can click on member contact, which is fill in the simple form, and it should, if you use that, it submits to my team, and what happens is if they can't resolve it, it will get allocated to the relevant officer, and it's logged and tracked, and there's an SLA and response time for them. So that's always the best way for you to report anything.
Yeah, I'm actually playing devil's advocate because I'm reporting to you as a member of the public would use it. So they won't go to members' portal. But when we were asked to report these things as members of the public, even though we were councillors, I came across this issue. But I just wonder if it still existed and if that was a deterrent to people using it, ordinary members of the public.
It's not something I've heard of, but I'll certainly take it offline. Thanks for the feedback.
Councillor Lyon.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't come in, but there's a couple of points I just wanted to pick up on. One of them in terms of access for those people that are not necessarily digital aware. My view is that there's a sort of 80-20 rule applies, and what we're looking to do is get 80% of those people that want to use digital online, and therefore we'll have more time to spend to the 20% that don't want to use digital. And I think that's always going to be the case. There is always going to be people that don't want to, for whatever reason, don't have access, can't use it, or just not in a place where they can use it. So there'll always be an answer point. There'll always be somebody that is going to answer calls verbally. And I think, picking up on Wynn's point, Loughton, we wouldn't expect them to come to Epping or anywhere else. We wouldn't want a face-to-face contact necessarily. If they have an issue, there's the telephone service and there's online. But the telephone service will always exist, and that's what I will be encouraging people to use. I think the other thing about your point, Councillor Wixley, is I don't think that exists anymore. It might have been a glitch, but 3 years is a long time in system development, and certainly Susan could actually have a look at that. But I think if you want to have a conversation with her offline about specific issues, that's fine, but I don't believe it is a deterrent to customers. But again, my view is to make these things as simple as possible. We don't want to have to train people to use our systems. We want them to be able to use them intuitively. And this is the case generally with banking and Tesco access and all these sorts of things. And just to quote, my mother-in-law's 97, has got an iPad, and she's also got a Kindle. So she is using these things on a regular basis. So an age is not necessarily deterrent, it's just the ability or willingness to want to engage. But again, we will make sure that there is always services there to support the whole of the population of Epping Forest. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of points, please. Comments and then some questions, I think. I feel one of the, and I know we're not here to discuss waste management, but we are here to discuss, the points have been made about the level of complaint and work it generated. I think one thing that would have helped, and it was, I have to be honest and say it was like getting blood out of a stone, is if members had been properly briefed by the leadership of the council about the issue. Then we are people in the community that lots of people contact. August is always a very busy month for most councillors. It's probably one of the busiest months I have in the year for casework, I can assure you. And I felt I was really battling to get a proper briefing about the situation, and I wasn't able to inform my constituents in the proper way, and I think that would have benefited, and everyone would have benefited from that. And we actually had a situation where I picked up something where members of the public were aware of an issue before members were, and that to me, I'm not saying we're any more important, I'm not saying that at all, but we should either have been made aware at the same time, or I would suggest maybe slightly before, but it's certainly at the same time. Quite happy to be informed at the same time, but I found it quite amazing that I had occasion where 2 or 3 members of the public were telling me more than we had been told by the leadership of the council. So that's meant, yes, it is a criticism, but it's a learning criticism, and it's meant to be helpful in the future. And I still have in my head somewhere, I haven't found it, I haven't been looking for it during the meeting, an email from the leader of council saying we were going to get a full and proper briefing from the portfolio holder. And unless I've missed it on the bulletin, and I do look at the bulletin every week, unless we've missed it on the bulletin, I've missed it on the bulletin, and therefore I apologise about that. I don't think we've had that, and I think we're still waiting, but anyway. Can I ask some questions about the Epping Community Hub? Because as you know, I've always been quite sceptical about that being the right place to run our first hub. I just want to examine this 150 visitors in August. Is that the whole of August, and I'm assuming there was 24, was the hub working for all 24 days of August? because if that's right, and if that covers everything in the hub, 6 a day doesn't strike me as very many. So can I just have some clarity around what that 150 is? Is it 150 to use benefits and finance throughout August, or is that 150 visitors full stop for all the other organisations that are there? I know they're not there every day, they're there on a rotation. So can I just have some more information about what that 150 represents, and is that am I right in working out that that's 24 working days? If I could just have some more information and then perhaps another comment. Thank you.
So yes, it was 150 overall, but the majority of those visitors were for services providing support around benefits and finance. But yes, it was open so all working days during August, and it's a total of 150 visitors.
Well, I have to say I find that an amazingly low figure. I mean, when I think of all the organisations that are there, including the Epping Forest Food Banks, I know they're there once a week. I just find that an amazingly low figure. I mean, I help at one hub, and it's a food surplus hub once a week in Loughton, and we get 70, 80 people every Tuesday morning. And I just think 150, something's not quite right there. That averages 6 a week, 6 a day. And I made reference to August being the busiest month for councillors in my experience, and Councillor Brooks knows this because I kept her well informed. And I'm just one councillor, and I'm sure other councillors were in the same position. I average 4 inquiries a day, and they're not even working days. That's 7 days a week. I mean, obviously spread, not spread evenly. I average 4 inquiries a day for every single day through August, and we're getting 6 in our Epping Community Hub, and that must take a lot of officer time and so on. I know they can be doing other things while they're waiting for people, but that you know, to me that confirms that sadly, and I take no joy in saying this, but I do note that it's improving, so that's good. I always like to be objective. To me, it was never in the right place, and I have to say 150 visitors in 1 month is not great.
Thank you for the comments, Councillor Murray. As we say, it is the first hub. We will take the learnings, and I'll report back on the volumes, obviously ongoing. But yeah, comments are noted. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, one. Oh, you can take it back. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Murray. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. We try and cluster services around where the demand will most be. Often hangs around the DWP, and when they're in, obviously we try and cluster the right services around that and make so it's all joined up for people. So 150 people or 6 people coming in, but they may well see one or more agency on that day. So I think it's important this is a learning for the authority, definitely, on how we provide this sort of joined up wraparound services for customers. It's something that we can move around in principle to other areas of districts, and as need determines, and that is the key. It's where need determines, and I accept that. I think we need to be mindful of what potentially coming up. I think it's going to be a tough time for people, and I suspect there may be some government initiatives coming along the line, for example, which the hub is a perfect venue for quite a flexible, quick response to get partners in to deliver that. So I don't think we've finished that learning process yet. And I think we give a little. We'll come back again with perhaps some more empirical data for you, so you can see who's using what service and what kind of journeys they're taking. And we're learning about which service to align with others to make it more effective for people and make it attractive for people to come in, because it's got to mean something for them, hasn't it? They've got to see some benefit coming out of it. So give us some more time to develop it, and we will certainly try and make the best fist of it for the council. Yeah.
That's good to hear, Chairman, because I'm I'm very keen on it being a positive venture.
Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to clarify something, because we've had a query from one of our colleagues who was aware that we were discussing this tonight, the responses. What exactly procedurally is meant to happen? I think his particular problem had been a waste management one, not surprising at the moment, but it does apply to other issues that people raise. The constituent had raised it and done a form and things, and then Councillor Owen filled in another form, the member enquiry one. The rubbish did get moved, but he wasn't sure whether it was just coincidence or whether that, because they knew that particular road was on the list of missed roads, you know, from 2 days previously. And that's something I would like clarifying on other things, because people have said they filled in the form, but not always had a response to say something's been done or being looked at. And I wondered, it was about hedge cutting actually, what the actual sort of procedure is for officers to follow.
Thanks, Councillor Brooks. Yeah, so in terms of procedure, if a customer completes the form, they should receive a response which states, obviously, your form has been received. One of the things that we are looking at the moment, so described about the customer feedback, so as a customer, if I complete a form, I don't want it just to say thank you for your form. I want to know what's going to happen with it and when I'm going to hear and what you're going to do with it. So I described earlier that we're doing this journey mapping, and in terms of our online experience, we're prioritising waste. So what my team have been doing is literally process mapping all of the customer experiences for waste to understand what does it look like, what does the customer do, what response does the customer get, and then looking at the back office process and where it goes to. What you've just described is one of the key things that we need to change consistently across all forms, across all areas, because the response time will be different, obviously depending on which form that you complete. But we need to manage customers' expectations, because if we don't and they just fill a form and it's gone into cyberspace, that's where customers won't repeat it, and then they'll call the contact centre because they don't understand what the response time is or what we're doing with the form. So that's exactly what we're working to improve. In terms of the specific one, it's I mean, maybe we should take it offline. You could let me know which one it was and I can have a look to find out what's happened to it. But I totally agree with you. That's where we need to improve the customer experience.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you. Can I refer to item 10, where it says members are being encouraged to use their own devices? Bring your own device. Different BYO, but bring your own device, this one. I wondered why there is this suggestion that this would be an improvement. What I'm about to say, I don't want to be considered a complaint against the ICT services, but as a new councillor, I saw this and I thought that was a good idea, and I brought along my Chromebook, and after half an hour, the officer gave up and said he couldn't do it and gave me a council pad. And so I wondered what was supposed to be the encouragement. Why is the encouragement to use your own device? Thank you.
Sorry, I was just noting what you just told me, because so in terms of encouraging uses, because I think many members preferred to use their own device because it's a device that they're familiar with. But if, as you've said, if you've tried to do that and then you couldn't use it, so it was a Chromebook, and you could. Was it something specifically that you couldn't do, or they couldn't upload, or? Oh.
No, generally, he couldn't load it, he couldn't get it to work at all. And as I say, after about half an hour, gave up. And I said, well, I'm quite happy to take one of the council Apple iPads. So as I say, I don't want that to be recorded as a complaint against ICT services, but I was just wondering why it seemed you were so keen to get members to use their own devices. Thank you.
I will pick that up, so I'll pick that up with my IT colleagues to understand if there's a specific issue around Chromebooks, but in general it was felt that some councillors just preferred to use something that they were familiar with and more comfortable with using, but I'm sorry that happened, so I'll take that away and find out why. Thanks for feedback.
And Marshall?
Just to say, if people fill in a digital form, is there anything you can put on the form to state when they would expect to know a feedback? You know, this for you will we will reply within 48 hours or 36 hours, whatever it is.
So it's inconsistent currently, so I'll describe it as the as is. So the as is it's inconsistent. So 100% of our forms need to tell the customer exactly what's going to happen and when. So the minute you hit send, you should get a message come back which thanks you for completing it. As I said, explains what's going to happen and when you'll hear back from us. It doesn't happen on all of our forms at the moment, so what we're doing is, as I say, we're prioritising it, we're using waste as a priority, and we're working through the forms to update them to make sure that the customers do get that response, because that's exactly what we need. And as I said, that's why we then get phone calls, because customers are not clear on what's happening. So we know it's something that we need to improve on.
Councillor Wixley?
Well, I just wanted to sympathise with Councillor Amos because I brought my own device in and it works in the council here in the offices. But when I get home, it doesn't work. I've got the council iPad. That will function at home, but not completely when I'm in here. So it's an ongoing saga. They know about it, but there's a limit to how much time you can spend on it because, strangely enough, we've got other things that go on in our lives. So I estimate that I've probably, since I've had the dreaded iPad, as I call it, I've probably spent about a working week trying to get it sorted out. And I've still got to make arrangements to come back in and have another go. I'm being as persistent as I can without going completely around the bend. But it is a very frustrating thing. And I just wonder if the whole thing should be scrapped and start all over again. I'm just a layperson, very much a layperson regarding these issues.
Susan Lewis, 1 second.
So members, can I propose that I take this back to senior leadership team and we get some information out to members to clarify what the position is, and if we need some more training or some more support, we can put that in place.
Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, to be fair, I think the support's there, but when you have to come in so often, you know, it's a time factor. So, you know, I've got to make arrangements yet again to come in and try and get these things sorted out. I don't expect to get it all sorted out in one afternoon, so that's probably another time. But this is, they know about it, but it seems to be nobody overall in charge who might say something dramatic like, let's start afresh. That's all I'm saying.
I'll take this away because I receive a daily report, so that's where I'm raising the fact earlier that I'm virtually seeing hardly any, I haven't looked at today's first off, any open tickets, but I'm going to check, Councillor Wixley, that yours is on there and find out what's going on with it. But what I would ask is that members, if you are having any issues, if you do report it, because at the moment, if people are having issues, we haven't got it logged, so we're not seeing anything. So, you know, if we've got it logged, we've got visibility, and I can hold IT accountable for fixing it for you. So I'd just ask if you could do that. That would be great. And if you've got any feedback, if you feed it through to members' contact, any general feedback around your IT equipment, and we can address that.
Actually, Susie, from my point of view, there's no need to do anything for me because I'm the one who's got to try and find the time to come in again. You know, Lisa Bannisterwood knows all about it and various other people, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. It's down to me and finding the time to do it. The frustrating thing is that it does take up a lot of time.
Councillor Nuke.
Yeah, just following up on the same issue, I think for me, the issue I've had is I couldn't use the council's email on my device because it prevents me from using my personal email And I've reported this. They've looked at it for over a month. I had to decide to delete the whole council website and emails from my personal device. So the IT are aware of it, but they've come back that they can't do anything about it.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman. I sympathise with everybody because I know exactly how complicated it can be. We've got different systems, different logons, different systems that we're trying to use, and I think this is now being looked at, certainly by Councillor Kane on the IT side, to look at a members portal where you have a simple access to all our systems. It's not easy to do, but it is being looked at, and that is a priority that Councillor Kane has been pushing for some time. And I fully sympathise with everybody that is using various devices. And I think the original idea of bring your own device was that some people had computers, laptops, and were using it for other things, and it was simpler, rather than to carry around 3 or 4 devices, to use a single device that you would actually find that you've got. If you've got an iPad, that's fine. If you haven't, and you've got a laptop, you might want to use a laptop. So it's trying to give members the best solution to the facilities that we've got. And I fully sympathise with Councillor Wixley, because we've had a number of conversations about this over a long period of time. And you're quite right, it is members' time that is being taken up, and we need to make sure that the systems, again, going back to my point, the systems that we've got are simple to use. We don't want to have a degree in IT to be able to use our day-to-day systems. So I will certainly be picking that up from a customer service point of view. And I believe members are customers, as our real residents are customers. Members are customers, and we should be treating them as such. Thank you.
I think Councillor Whitbread, I think you was next.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll keep it brief. But sorry that I was late this evening. I was rushing back from Swindon, and apparently, unfortunately, my train was delayed from Paddington. So sorry to have missed the police report, but I did catch Caroline outside, and I understand it went well. But any questions do come to me also. I just want to pick up quickly on the communications around the community hub point and some of the issues around the community hub, because I do think it's an important one, and partly sits within my portfolio as well. I think the community hub concept is fantastic and something that we all very much agree with, and having all the partners in one place around the table is something that's really important. However, whilst there have been some great examples and great case studies actually in my own area, I've heard of homeless people walking into the hub and being able to be referred to the right support in a timely and quick manner. I think there is an issue, and this is something we've identified and are working on, around making sure that people know it's here, when it's open, and what exactly the hub contains. Previously, kind of during the pandemic, there were numerous conversations about having various pop-up hubs across the district, particularly focusing on some of our estates and super output areas. So in Loughton, in Debden, also on the Paternoster estate, as well as Shelley estate as well, and Limes. So I think that's something that we still need to look at, and we do have those kind of key spaces there. I know we've got Deborah here today, but our kind of community centres based there. So I think particularly in light of the cost of living crisis and the challenges that we may face in the coming months, that is something that we need to look at and might be able to mobilise quite quickly as well, because we do have this really positive working relationship with our partners across the board. But the point I really wanted to make, that it's a fantastic concept, we just have to make it work in reality, and part of that is about getting the message out there, but also, as Councillor Murray quite rightly mentioned, having it in the right place at the right time. Just as well to note on the civic building, the civic offices, that there are many other functions as well. And actually, I don't know actually whether those statistics included the food bank usage, because I know the number here in Epping is quite high, and that comes directly into this building as well. So that's worth taking on board. But that's all I want to say. But I would make a comment that I gave up my iPad quite some time ago, and I use my own personal device just for ease, which I know lots of members choose to do. Experiencing the system at Essex County Council, and I know Councillor Kane has experienced that system too, has been very good actually, and it's a much more simple device, a basic laptop, but it works really well. And I know there have been discussions moving forward about potentially offering new members the opportunity of a laptop or a potential swap, but obviously that has cost implications as well. But it's very much on our radar, and I know many cabinet members and members have kind of given up on their laptop some time ago, on their iPad some time ago. Thank you.
Councillor Brooks. Oh, your microphone's not on.
Apologies, sorry. They can't switch it off or can't switch it on. About the IT tickets, Susan, I think one reason perhaps the number of people that's actually raised a ticket is perhaps low is I suspect other people might be a bit like me. You have some sort of crisis and you can't sort it out and you quickly ring up and they're very, very helpful. So I suspect there are more problems than the tickets may, the figures relay. The other thing was, Deborah, that something that was very helpful was a few council meetings ago, you arranged for the IT team to be on duty from 6 to 7, so you could drop in. And that was very, very helpful. And I noticed quite a few members using it. I know it means they have to be paid overtime for an hour or hour and a half. But I think because people are making the journey to a physical meeting here, which now we don't often do, that I think is a really good idea on the 11th of October. Thanks.
Excuse me. Thanks very much, Rose, for that feedback. I'll take that away around the 11th of October and the possibility of doing that.
Okay. Thank you all very much for your comments. The report that we received was only for noting and for considering, which I think we've well done. Thank you all very much for your input. Our next item is the impact of minor estate improvements carried out at Harvey Fields, Waltham Abbey, which was pages 37 to 44 of our agenda.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a good news story this evening. So this report relates to the impact of the minor estate improvements scheme, which has been carried out at Harvey Fields, and members may remember that a sum of a fund was agreed to carry out minor improvements on estates, and this is the first of those. For members who aren't aware, Harvey Fields was built in the 1970s, 10 blocks of 75 mixed tenure flats around some green spaces. For many years, the estate has suffered from quite serious fly tipping and contamination, and this includes large accumulations of household, what we call side waste and sort of large household items. If members could take a look, please, at point 3, the photographs illustrate, the extent of the issue. In 2020, it was agreed that Harvey Fields would be used as a pilot, and officers would set out ways to eradicate fly tipping and tackle some of the inappropriate waste management. So that also included the mixing of waste and not recycling. The project resulted in a number of new bin areas, and officers carried out some extensive consultation with residents through a range of paper, online and informal chatterbox meetings. A sense of place survey was also conducted both before and after. Members can see by looking at the photographs in point 8, which is on page 36, the new bin areas and the pathways. The old 1970s washing lines have been removed and new rotary lines have been installed, as well as a new bike store and some new litter bins and dog waste bins. And I'm sure members will agree that it looks absolutely marvellous compared to how it looked before. There has been a marked decrease in fly tipping, and to give you a little bit of context, between the 28th of September 2020 and the 30th of June 2021, the council spent £5,000 on removing bulk rubbish from the estate, and from the 1st of July 2021 to the 30th of June 2022, expenditure has reduced to just £607. However, it is more than just about the finances. It's about the installation of our cycle store, as I mentioned earlier. It's our ability to enforce our fire safety policy, which is that items should not be in the communal areas or within 2 metres of the envelope of the building. And it's also about the look and feel of the estate for residents. We want residents to feel safe, we want them to feel proud, and we want them to like where they live. And they're only able to do this if we can support them in creating those great places by carrying out works such as these. Members will also be pleased to hear that this has also helped and contributed to our obligations under the Homes Fit for Human Habitation Act 2018. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Deborah. Councillor Wixley.
Right, thank you. A couple of things actually. I'm sure the answer to this is yes, but the Homes Fit for Human Habitation Act 2018, as amended, presume that applies right across the board for any type of landlord, so private or council or whatever.
Yes, it does, and we have a number of other projects which will be ongoing, just making sure that we can meet our obligations under the Act.
Yeah, I was actually interested in that I've got a potential issue about a private landlord, so that's why I was interested in that Act. And the other thing, just looking down on that page, there's reference to housing, health and safety in England regulations, and it says HSSR. I would have thought that should have been HHSR. So what exactly does HSSR stand for?
Councillor Wixley, I'll have to get back to you because my mind has just drawn an absolute blank.
Yeah, I suffer from the same problem, so I'm very sympathetic.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you. It's good to have this good news, and I'm sure it will be, but I hope we promote these improvements when we're inspectors. We're now subject to the inspection of all the social housing. My experience of these bodies is that they spend a lot of time looking for things that they can criticise and things that are wrong. So I say I'm sure it will be, but I hope we push this forward very much before them and so show them what has been done by the council, and particularly in conjunction with the consultation with the tenants.
Thank you, and members may be aware that the Decent Home Standard is currently undergoing consultation at the moment. It is very much believed across the sector that the Decent Home Standard will extend to, I suppose, decent estates or decent communities, if you like. So our work on the communities, on the estates, very, very much plays into the hands of what we believe the new Decent Home Standard to be going forward.
Councillor Nuke.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I would love to join to celebrate the good news story here. My question is there any plan to extend this project to other estates? Because I'm aware that similar fly tipping is happening in Oak Hill Estate. I get frequent complaints from residents about fly tips being left for days. So is there any plan to extend this to other areas?
We do have plans to extend it across the district. My colleague Rachel Smith will be able to update us on this, so I suggest, if it's okay with members, that she puts a list together and we attach it to the minutes.
Councillor Murray next.
Yes, I've just done a Google search, and the only thing I can find for those initials actually comes up with HHSRS, which is the Housing Health and Safety Rating System. But whether this is something different, but I just thought I was being helpful, and as the council issued us with iPads, we might as well use them.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. That is correct. And noted, we will amend the report.
Wynne Marshall.
Yeah, just following on from our point, I know this report's been put in at the last minute because the housing strategy report's been now moved back to the next meeting. But the more bricks and mortar, there's already a list of projects under that to be brought forward, is now to be brought to the committee as well. So those are already been listed and in progress. The only point I would make again is the same thing as we discussed earlier. I think that we just need to make sure that whatever projects we do, and this has been an excellent project, there's no doubt about it, that again we give people across the district a chance, not just in the highly populated areas, but give people across the district a chance to improve the areas, even if they're in the middle of the countryside.
Thank you, Mr Marshall. We will take note of that. Thank you.
Councillor Helen Kane.
Thank you, Chairman. I just would like to personally thank the officers as they involved me. I'm the ward councillor from the very beginning. There was some years ago, I brought to their attention the lack of parking, so they helped me in providing proper bays and solved quite a lot of unsightly parking, and most probably a very high risk matter was leaving the bicycles in corridors, obstructing safety and emergency exits. They kept me informed throughout with a thorough consultation with the residents to utilise space for safety storage. Then, of course, there was an issue with the bins, and although I had some concerns, I'm very pleased to see that BIFA have no problems collecting the bins for this estate. So thank you very much. It is an example, and I hope it continues. Thanks a lot, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Just one thing. Yes, it's a lovely good news story. One thing I was particularly pleased about that you've both referred to really as a cyclist, because when you live in a flat, it is a pain having a bike. But the cycle stores, and I know these are very common in some areas of London, but I just think it's great to have these, and I look forward to more of them around, because I do think to have a safe place to keep your bike does help. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. That's great. Really great update. Great story. Really pleased to see. As a Waltham Abbey councillor myself, very familiar with the area. It's very well received by the residents as well. Okay, so we'll move on to item 10, which is for the new support model of sheltered housing. And Deborah Fenton again, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the recommendation stroke decisions required is that members consider a new needs-led support service for residents in sheltered housing. And also that the sheltered housing officers move to a hub approach to allow that the work is evenly distributed. That members consider the rebranding of the council sheltered housing to independent living, just to make it more attractive to potential residents, and that any suggested amendments are to be considered firstly by the portfolio holder, Councillor Holly Whitbread, prior to the submission of the report to Cabinet. So if I can give members some context, each sheltered housing officer is based at a sheltered scheme and visits each resident on the scheme on a daily basis. In addition, they also visit a number of older people in the community, and there is a charge for this service. In addition to undertaking the daily welfare checks, there are a number of other support and housing management checks which are carried out, and these are set out in point 1 of the report. The demographics of our schemes have changed over the years, as has the level of independence. The residents of our schemes vary considerably in terms of age, from 60 to 90 plus. And there are some that don't want or need support. There are some that still work. There are some that have their grandchildren and simply do not want to be disturbed by a sheltered housing officer knocking on their door. On the other hand, there will be residents that need an enhanced support service, and I'm quite happy later in the report to give you some examples of this. So the door knock is really out of date, and residents want a more flexible service, but importantly, they want peace of mind that they can have the support when they really need it. An example of this may be when they've gone into hospital. When they return home, they may need not only a door knock, but they may need the sheltered housing officer to come in and spend a little bit of time, maybe ring in the district nurse, or just, spending 10-15 minutes talking to them, giving them peace of mind. That can't happen at the moment with the current service. Many local authorities and housing associations have moved away from the daily service and now work on a needs-led approach. So let me give you a little bit of context as to how this would work. Each resident would have a support plan, and that support plan would be agreed with the resident and the support officer, and it would be agreed as to what level of support that resident needed. This could be anything from once every couple of days, once every 6 months, and of course it may vary and move up and down depending on the needs of that resident. What this then does is this targeted visit allows, as I've mentioned, officers to spend quality time with those in need. And if I can just give you an example, please, of a good practice example from my previous place of work, which is quite heart-rendering and just shows the benefits of this needs-led service. So if you have somebody with dementia who, say, for example, is married, and we had this in one of our schemes, this gentleman kept leaving his flat and actually going out and getting lost. He was playing with the lock all the time. My member of staff did a piece of work with his wife and discovered that in his working life he was actually a locksmith. So because my officer had time and we also had some budget, we actually purchased a piece of equipment particularly made for people with dementia, which was all different kinds of locks and bolts. We then provided that on a loan basis to the tenant and his wife, and that really gave her peace of mind. He stopped unlocking the door and going out of the scheme and getting lost. Another thing we were able to do was introduce specific afternoons where residents with dementia could be brought into schemes, and we could hold social afternoons giving partners a much needed rest. And I was very actually very emotional on one occasion when the wife of a resident said how great the service was and they hadn't had a break in 2 years like that. So that's just a couple of examples of what this enables us to do. If I can refer members to point 4, we have consulted with residents on this, and the response was largely favourable. The other thing we are going to do is we're going to review the charges. Many housing associations and local authorities have done this, and what they found that a lot of charges which are called support charges are actually not support charges but are intensive housing management charges, which can be subject to housing benefits. So that would take some financial strain off residents. However, we're not looking here at this isn't about increasing charges, but this will mitigate some of the charges and bring a favourable outcome for residents moving forward. I've also mentioned in my opening statement about wanting to rebrand the service to independent living, which is in effect what it actually is. It's independent living with support, and also change the job title of the officers from sheltered housing officer to independent living officers. I think this is pertinent because people are living longer and they are remaining independent for longer, and for a lot of our residents, they really don't want to be housed in something which is called sheltered housing. As I say, they are independent, they go out, they do their own thing. Apologies, it's quite a detailed subject paper, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thanks very much for that report, and I think it sounds quite encouraging. It's just one thing, one thing I want to ask, and then I've got just a comment to make. You referred to a support plan, and I just wondered, is these support plans, obviously people change over time, so will that be on an annual basis that everybody has a support plan review?
So the support plans are reviewed on an annual basis. However, if there is an event, such as a hospital admission, a fall, an illness, then they are reviewed because the support needs will change. So that's where what we may do is we may say, I gave the example, if someone goes into hospital and then they come out and they've opted to have a visit every 6 months, that wouldn't be appropriate and it wouldn't be meeting their needs. So that would be reviewed at that point.
Yeah, that sounds very good. I was quite surprised to read in the report that some people in this sort of accommodation certainly appear to be independent because they go out to work, and I was quite surprised just to read that. I don't know if you could perhaps enlighten me a bit on the sort of work they do, because I think if I was in one of these places and I wanted support, it'd probably be somebody to knock me up to make sure I got to work on time, but I don't think that's the general idea.
Over the years, sheltered housing has changed and now has a vast variety of ages, as I mentioned, from 60 to 90. And we don't. Our lower limit is age 60. So people do move in, and they can be undertaking any type of work. There is no restriction, and as we know, there is people can work now beyond retirement age if that's what they choose to do.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you. I fully support the idea of changing over to needs-led. You have described how additional services can be given to people who who do need it. And there is, of course, individual choice. People don't want everybody knocking on their door every day and so on and so forth. So I certainly welcome that. I also welcome the change in title. Sheltered housing. Now, it may be just me, but sheltered housing implies that there are poor creatures who have to be protected from the world because they can't cope. So I think independent living is a much better title. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and just to thank Deborah for her report. And I think this is a really important piece of work. Just to comment on the different age ranges in our sheltered accommodation, as it is named at the moment, the ages do go from as low as 60, and actually we have highlighted a number of times in this committee and also in Cabinet that sheltered housing is one of our biggest challenges, because it's the only part of our housing list where we do actually have a supplementary list. So part of this work is trying to make sheltered accommodation attractive to our tenants and try and get people to kind of move in there, and actually change it to a needs-based model, trying to modernise the space is all part of that. And, you know, we don't really want to be in a situation where we have a supplementary housing list. We're so strict on other parts of our list that you must have lived in the area for at least 7 years to be eligible, that it seems a shame that we're not having this part of the accommodation. Also, when we know that older persons' housing is really important in our community, and it's something that we want to promote. With my Essex County Council hat on, I've actually, in May, I became the Deputy for Adult Social Care and Health, and actually it's really opened my mind on a lot of issues, particularly around kind of sheltered accommodation and independent living. And one of the things I was going to say to Deborah following this meeting today is it is really important we are joined up with the County Council in terms of social care needs in our area, and I really welcome this report. I think it's really important. Thank you.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you. I won't repeat what other members have said. I would agree. It's just something I wanted to examine in a little bit more detail that hasn't been touched on by other members so far. I completely understand that a support plan in most cases is you're going to have a revolving or ongoing support plan that's looked at every 12 months, and presumably all the residents won't be done at the same time. It'll be a rolling programme. And you've mentioned the trigger points that would automatically review the support plan earlier than 12 months, and they're obvious trigger points. But sometimes with elderly people, and I would have noticed this with my elderly mother before she died, you don't always get trigger points where you would see that a change in the support plan was necessary. So I'm sure using their new title, the independent living officers would also be able to see within the existing support plan, when they're meeting that, if they see that it needs changing in some way, but there hasn't been one of the trigger points that you mentioned, I'm sure that they're not going to keep to the 12-month rule, are they? They will be able to pick up that nuance.
Absolutely. They'll be having conversation with residents on a regular basis anyway. So absolutely those conversations happen. And as people do get older, we'll be more mindful that we will need to visit them and see if they've got any additional needs, because our goal here is to keep people independent and trying to avoid them having to move into residential care, because they are best placed to be independent for as long as possible, and that is our goal here at Epping Forest District Council.
Councillor Brooks.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of questions and a comment, please. Deborah, is it 11 full-time officers? Oh, sorry.
It's full-time equivalent.
I assume in COVID, did they just phone? Yes,
during COVID, they just called. There was no there was no door knocking. It's worth also reminding members that we have that Cabinet have agreed that we can upgrade all the alarm systems within our sheltered housing units, which are a lot more innovative, shall we say, than we've got now. So that will allow us to provide, you know, services in a more innovative way for our residents as well.
And the other thing really is a couple of things. One, I thought we at one committee, and I can't remember which one it was, we discussed that you'd put Wi-Fi in most of the sheltered accommodation. Is that right? But when I went to Barrington Court recently, there wasn't any.
So there was a proposal following the sheltered housing review that Wi-Fi went into the schemes. However, when that was investigated, it was cost prohibitive, and a lot of work was done with residents, and the cost that would be added to the service charge was cost prohibitive. So no, that hasn't happened to date. However, going forward, we do need to review that, because we know that you know, this is what residents want to use mobile devices just as we do. We've recently done some work at I think it was Hyde House, and what we did find there that a lot of the residents actually had their own Wi-Fi and didn't require us to install Wi-Fi.
Just one other query, because we have talked about this at Housing and Community before, is we've got on our housing list, we've got such a lot of young people, and we were in the review of sheltered housing. I'd sort of thought that perhaps we were going to look at some of it being converted more to, you know, use by these, you know, people who are patiently waiting, who on our lists, given that the demand isn't as high as it was.
Councillor Holly Whitbread has requested that we start to develop a strategy for older persons housing, which will investigate those matters, and a strategy will be brought forward.
Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to pick up on a couple of those points, in relation to the Wi-Fi, I actually visited Hyde House a couple of months ago now, and had a really good conversation with some of our community champions who'd been hosting a number of events for the residents in the communal spaces, and they were really keen to see Wi-Fi installed in the communal spaces. And we did a survey of however many residents, it must be about 100 or so, in Hyde House, and I think it came back that about 80% didn't want it, which was quite a surprise actually, because I thought from having that conversation with the community champions that there was a real desire for it, but it turns out more what the desire is to be able to have things like games nights and community activities and cinema nights. So we are looking for ways around this, and I had a really good conversation with Deborah and Denise Pledger about potentially bringing in kind of cinema companies and hosting evenings like that, working with also community organisations to deliver that. I think in a modern sheltered accommodation, I think it is something that we're going to have to look into moving forward, especially if we are going to get a better use out of those community spaces, which when we look at kind of regenerating our sheltered accommodation is really key. Just on that point, Councillor Brooks, about accommodation for young people, which I completely agree is very important, and certainly something that we consider when looking at housing mix when delivering new accommodation. However, I do also think it's really important that we look at older people's housing and have a really comprehensive strategy around that. The reason we've adopted this approach so far, which I hope committee support, is that we do want to create spaces which older people, and older people is quite a broad word because it is talking about 60 plus in this context, want to live in, it is really important. And actually when we work in partnership with County Council, we create the spaces that people both want and need. And I think this approach here, moving towards more independent living, but having that flexibility and journey across people's life, perhaps as they move into more domiciliary needs, is really important and something I hope we can develop. But obviously if this wasn't to work and we're still in the same situation in a couple of years' time, it's something that we could potentially review again.
Thank you for your input, Councillor Whitbread. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, and also, of course, if you get the independent living, I won't say right, improve it, because we've offered the service in the past and it's worked, but improved it, then you're more likely to get elderly people who might be living in a 3-bed house, giving up their 3-bed house. Then you'll have people in flats moving to those 3-bed houses, and then you'll get the young people in. So it does kind of have that chain effect, doesn't it, that we're all aware of. But I'll just remind members that it does have that chain effect as well through the system.
Thank you all for all of those comments. It seems we're very much in favour and support the report, so we look forward to seeing that report progress, so thank you very much. The final item is just for the date of the future meeting, so to note that the next meeting of this select committee will be held at 7 p.m. on the 15th of November. Councillor Murray.
I'm happy to note that, Chairman, but I also want to note something else. Unless I'm wrong, you were newly elected in May. It's merely the 20th of September, and you've just chaired a wonderful select committee. So this isn't directed to Councillor Holly Whitbread, this is directed to the whole Cabinet. Cabinet next May. They might have to watch out. So congratulations from May to September. Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Very kind words. Okay, I close the meeting at 8:45. Thank you.